Namaskar, good evening viewers. It is 9 p.m. time for the news on Sansad TV. I'm Rajiv Kumar Singh. In the next half an hour, we will take you through all the important developments from India and abroad. First up, as always, the headlines. Army vehicle falls into river in Ladakh. 7 Jawans killed, injured brought to Panchkula for treatment. President, Vice President and Prime Minister express grief. India on course to be a hub of drone technology, says Prime Minister at India's biggest drone festival. Drone business to exceed rupees 15,000 crore by 2026. 4 LASHKAR terrorists shot dead in 2 encounters in Jammu and Kashmir. 2 of the terrorists were involved in the killing of a Kashmiri television artist. 10 terrorists killed in last 3 days. Former Haryana CM Om Prakash Chautala sentenced to 4 years in jail in disproportionate assets case. Special CBI court directed to confiscate 4 properties. At the Regional Security Dialogue on Afghanistan in Dushanbe, NSA Ajit Doval reiterates India's outlook on Kabul, calls for inclusive society in Afghanistan. Let us now look on at some more important news of the day. Prime Minister Modi to visit Gujarat on Saturday to attend seminar of leaders of various cooperatives institutions. Interministerial Central Team in Assam to assess damage caused by flood and landslides. Quad meant not giving other nations a veto on India's choices, says Foreign Minister S. JAISHANKAR. President Ramnath Kovind in Madhya Pradesh for 3-day visit to attend programs in Bhopal and Ujjain. Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla addresses valedictory function of National Conference on Women Legislators in Thiruvananthapuram. RBI warns of retail inflation due to higher level of wholesale inflation. Sensex and Nifty surge more than 1% amid positive global cues. China's cabinet led by Premier Li Keqiang holds unprecedented video conference with over 1 lakh participants to bolster economy. Russian President Vladimir Putin says West will face growing economic problems in its attempt to isolate Russia. Japan and US fly fighters in response to a joint air patrol by Chinese and Russian warplanes. And now news in detail. India is marching ahead with great speed to become a global drone hub. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said this on Friday while inaugurating India's biggest drone festival, Bharat Drone Mahotsav 2022 in New Delhi. He added that the drone sector could soon become an emerging sector of employment generation in India. He also said that before 2014, poor and middle class suffered due to environment of indifference towards the technology. However, the current government has ensured last-mile delivery of services with the help of technology, including drones. He elaborated how the Prime Minister Swamitva Yojana has been used for digitally mapping villages across the country for the first time and 65 lakh property cards have been generated. Urging the investors to come and invest in India's booming drone sector, he appealed to the youth to come forward and set up drone startups.
ये भारत में एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेशन के एक उभरते हुए बड़े सेक्टर की संभावनाएं दिखाती है। आज भारत स्टार्टअप पावर के दम पर दुनिया में ड्रोन टेक्नोलॉजी का सबसे बड़ा एक्सपर्ट बनने की ओर तेज गति से आगे बढ़ रहा है।
In a tragic incident in Ladakh, 7 army jawans were killed and 19 others injured as their vehicle fell into the Shok River. The accident took place in Ladakh's Turtuk sector at around 9 a.m. when the vehicle skipped off the road and fell in the Shyok River. As many as 26 soldiers were on the way from the transit camp in Partapur to a forward location in subsector Hanif. All 26 soldiers were evacuated to an army field hospital post the accident. The 19 injured were then shifted to Army's Western Command Hospital in Panchkula in Haryana. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has spoken to the Chief of Army Staff General Manoj Pandey to take stock of the situation. President, Vice President and Prime Minister have expressed grief at the mishap. In a major breakthrough for security forces in Jammu and Kashmir, 4 LASHKAR terrorists have been killed in 2 separate encounters in Pulwama and Srinagar districts. 2 of these terrorists were involved in killing a female TV artist Amreen Bhatt on Badgam a day before the encounter. Police said that an encounter broke out at Agan Hanzipura locality in Avantipura area of Pulwama district late on Thursday night, in which the 2 terrorists were trapped and killed. They have been identified as Shahid Mushtaq Bhatt from Badgam and Farham Habib from Pulwama. Another encounter broke out in Sora area of Srinagar where 2 Lashkar-e-Toiba terrorists were shot dead. 10 terrorists, including 3 from Jaish-e-Mohammed and 7 from Lashkar, have been killed in past 3 days in the Kashmir Valley.
रिटेलिएशन में दोनों टेररिस्ट मारे गए हैं। दोनों लोकल टेररिस्ट सी कैटेगरी टेररिस्ट है। एक AK-47 राइफल, एक पिस्टल मिला है। दूसरा इनकाउंटर अवंतीपुर एरिया हुआ है, उसमें 2 LAT का टेररिस्ट मारा गया है। और हम सब को याद है कि 2 दिन पहले एक TV एक्ट्रेस को मारा था। हम लोग तभी से उसको ट्रैक कर रहे थे, उसमें से दोनों मारे गए हैं।
National Security Advisor Ajit Doval has assessed that India was and is an important stakeholder in Afghanistan. Speaking at the 4th Regional Security Dialogue on Afghanistan in Tajikistan's capital Dushanbe, Doval called for enhancing Afghanistan's capability to counter terrorism and terrorist groups which pose a threat to regional peace and security. Doval said that India has historical and civilizational relations with Afghanistan and New Delhi has always stood by the people of Afghanistan and will continue to do so. Doval also highlighted the need for representation of all sections of Afghan society, including women and minorities. Doval's counterparts from Tajikistan, Russia, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Iran, Kyrgyzstan and China also took part in the regional security dialogue. Former Haryana Chief Minister Om Prakash Chautala has been sentenced to a 4-year jail term by a Delhi court in a disproportionate assets case. A fine of rupees 50 lakh has been levied on Chautala for acquiring disproportionate assets from the year 1993 to 2006. The court has also directed the authorities to confiscate 4 of his properties. The court had convicted Chautala last week and said that the accused had failed to satisfactorily account for such assets. The CBI had filed the case in 2005 and filed a charge sheet in March 2010. The disproportionate assets were calculated to be rupees 6.09 crore, which were 189.11% of his known sources of income.
4 साल की सजा, 50 लाख रुपए जुर्माना और 4 संपत्तियां उनकी जब्त की गई। 50 लाख में से 5 लाख रुपए CBI को दिए जाएंगे। बिल्कुल जेल जाना होगा, यहीं से कस्टडी में ले लिया है, यहीं से जेल लेंगे।
The central government has released an advance of rupees 324 crore from the State Disaster Relief Fund to flood-hit Assam. A team of officials from the Ministry of Home Affairs reached Guwahati and held a meeting with Assam State Disaster Management Authority officials. The officials tried to assess the damage caused by the floods and landslide in the state. To accelerate an effective damage assessment, the interministerial central team members will be divided into 2 groups for visiting the relevant affected districts. And in all the news from across the nation, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh boarded a Kalvari-class submarine off the Karwar coast during his two-day visit to Karnataka. Indian Navy Chief Admiral R. Hari Kumar was also present. Rajnath Singh took part in a yoga session with officers and staff of the Indian Navy at the naval base. India's Foreign Minister Dr. S. JAISHANKAR met his Hungarian counterpart Peter Zerato. JAISHANKAR appreciated Hungarian support for Operation Ganga and discussed the admission of Indian medical students to Hungary. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal said that the India-UK Free Trade Agreement could be ready by Diwali. Goyal arrived in London after attending the annual meeting of the World Economic Forum in Davos, where he interacted with stakeholders and business people ahead of the fourth round of FTA talks. Law Minister Kiren Rijiju on Friday launched the Notaries online application portal to receive applications from those applying to become notaries. Union Minister of State for Law SP Singh Baghel was also present at the launch. The portal will lead to a paperless regime. The centre is considering linking other national health programs with the CoWIN platform to record and issue certificates of COVID vaccination. The entire immunization system will be digitized with UIP is integrated with the CoWIN platform. The three-member Supreme Court Collegium has recommended the transfer of 6 High Court judges. Justice Gaurav has been transferred from Madhya Pradesh High Court to Delhi High Court, while Justice Amanullah has been transferred from Andhra Pradesh High Court to Patna High Court. Eastern Railways achieved 100% electrification of 2,848-kilometer-long rail network with the completion of work on the 41-kilometer-long Hasdia-Godda section. This will help the railways achieve its target of making the country's railway network carbon neutral by 2030. The country is remembering former Prime Minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru on his death anniversary. Prime Minister Narendra Modi paid tributes to him. Congress President Sonia Gandhi and other senior leaders paid floral tributes to Nehru's memorial at Shantivan. RBI has warned of a risk of higher retail inflation as the result of surge in wholesale prices. In its annual report, RBI said high prices of industrial raw materials, transportation costs, global logistics and supply chain disruptions are adding to core inflation. Meanwhile, India's foreign exchange reserves rose by $4.23 billion to $597.509 billion in the week ended May 20th. Time for a short break here. On the other side, China and Russia veto UN resolution sponsored by United States for sanctions on North Korea. Welcome back. Time now for all the main developments from the Russia-Ukraine war that has completed 90 days. And in all the updates from the conflict in Ukraine. The UN Human Rights Office says it has recorded over 4,000 civilians killed in Ukraine since the Russian invasion began, noting the actual number is likely much higher. 4,031 people have been killed, including nearly 200 children, according to OHCHR, which has dozens of monitors in the country. Most were killed by explosive weapons with a wide impact such as shelling from heavy artillery or airstrikes. Moscow pressed the West on Thursday to lift sanctions against Russia over the war in Ukraine. It said that a growing food crisis has been worsened by Kyiv's inability to ship millions of tons of grain and other agricultural products. Britain accused Russia of trying to hold the world to ransom, insisting there would be no sanctions relief, and a top US diplomat blasted the sheer barbarity, sadistic cruelty and lawlessness of the invasion. Ukrainian forces are engaged in a fierce defense of the eastern city of Severodonetsk, which is Two-thirds surrounded by Russian forces, the Luhansk region's governor has said. Shelling has damaged 90% of the housing in the city. In the Kherson region, Russian forces are fortifying their defensive positions just north of Crimea, while shelling Ukraine-controlled areas on a daily basis, the region's governor has said. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has said Russian President Vladimir Putin must not be allowed to get away with his cynical, inhuman war. He said Putin's war is directed against a peace order that arose from the commitment never again after two devastating world wars. He wants to return to the law of the strongest. The Kremlin spokesperson has blamed Ukraine for the fact that peace talks between the two countries are frozen, saying it was unclear that Kyiv wanted. The Ukrainian leadership constantly makes contradictory statements, he said. This does not allow us to fully understand what the Ukrainian side wants. His statement came after Zelensky on Friday said that Ukrainians need to face the realities and engage with Putin on peace talks. Russia's foreign ministry has said it is expelling 5 staff members of the Croatian embassy in Moscow in response to Zagreb ordering out some of its staff. The Biden administration in America is leaning towards approving sending multiple launch rocket system MLRS to Ukraine, technology that would vastly increase the military's capabilities. The MLRS and the lighter weight version, the high mobility artillery rocket system, can launch rockets as far as 300 kilometers. The system have topped the list of weapons requested by Ukraine as fighting has concentrated in the sprawling eastern region of the country. Time now for some other global updates. China and Russia vetoed a UN resolution sponsored by the United States on Thursday that would have imposed tough new sanctions on North Korea for its spate of intercontinental ballistic missile launches that can be used to deliver nuclear weapons.
13-2 was the vote on a North Korea sanctions resolution in the 15-member UN Security Council. It marked the first serious division on the issue among the 5 veto-wielding permanent members of the UN's most powerful body. It was the United Security Council that imposed sanctions after North Korea's first nuclear test explosion in 2006. Over the years, it tightened these sanctions, seeking to rein in North Korea's nuclear and ballistic missile programs and cut off funding. Before Thursday's vote, US Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield appealed for unity, calling North Korea's 6 ICBM tests this year a threat to the entire international community. She also stressed that in the last sanctions resolution adopted by the Council in December 2017, members committed to further restricting petroleum exports to North Korea if it conducted a ballistic missile launch capable of reaching intercontinental ranges. North Korea suspended ICBM tests for 5 years. China's UN ambassador Zhao Jun reiterated Beijing's opposition to new sanctions against North Korea ahead of the vote. He called instead for the United States to take meaningful, practical actions to resume its dialogue with the country and find a political solution to the situation on the Korean Peninsula, where the 1950-53 war between North Korea and South Korea stopped with an armistice, not a peace treaty. The announcement of the UN vote came hours after South Korea reported that North Korea test-launched a suspected ICBM and 2 shorter-range missiles. Bureau Report, Sansad TV.
And now in other news from across the world. French Prime Minister Elisabeth Borne held a cabinet meeting in Paris on Friday to outline the priorities of her new government for the coming months. Borne said her cabinet would pursue French President Emmanuel Macron's goal on tackling the cost of living, the country's health system and the climate crisis. France will have parliamentary election to determine seats in the National Assembly in June, when parties on both The far left and the far right would try to reduce Macron's centrist majority. Asian shares gained on Friday as investors cheered a strong set of earnings from retailers that has sent US shares higher. Benchmarks were rising in early trading across the region, including Japan, China, Australia and South Korea. Gauging Japan's economic path will be on investors' minds as data for April are set to be released next week. Some analysts expect the numbers to be dim because of a slowdown in exports in China during this period. Turkey's foreign minister on Friday said Sweden and Finland must now take concrete steps to address Turkey's security concerns to overcome its objection to their NATO bid. Speaking with his Polish and Romanian counterparts in Istanbul, he said the Nordic delegations had gone back to their capitals with Turkey's demands and documents following a meeting on Wednesday. Turkey is now awaiting their answers. The minister said Sweden and Finland have made a historic request to join NATO in response to Russia's war against Ukraine. Turkey is opposing their bid. China on Friday criticized a speech by US Secretary of State Antony Blinken that focused on relations between the world's top two economic powers, saying that the US was seeking to smear Beijing's reputation. In his Thursday address, Blinken said the administration of President Joe Biden aims to lead the international bloc opposed to Russia's invasion of Ukraine into a broader coalition to counter what it sees as a more serious long-term threat to global order from China. The skyscrapers of Sydney peered out through a thick blanket of fog as Australia's largest city woke up to a shroud on Friday. Aerial footage from Sydney showed that the city and its outskirts covered by the fog, with only some of its major landmarks still visible. While Sydney Airport reported to cancellations, some ferry services were disrupted due to the low visibility. Indian writer Geetanjali Shree and American translator Daisy Rockwell won the International Booker Prize on Thursday for Tomb of Sand, a vibrant novel with a boundary-crossing 80-year-old heroine. Originally written in Hindi titled Reet Ka Maqbara, it is the first book in any Indian language to win the high-profile award that recognizes fiction from around the world that has been translated into English. The £50,000 prize money will be split between the New Delhi-based Shree and Rockwell, who lives in Vermont. Shree said she was delighted, honored and humbled after receiving the prize. Time now for all the sporting action. Starting with chess, young Indian Grandmaster R. Praggnanandhaa went down fighting to world number 2 Ding Liren in the tiebreak of the Chessable Masters 2022 online tournament final today. The 16-year-old from Chennai fought back to win the second set after having lost the opener, but then lost the two-game blitz tiebreaker. On the hockey, India made it to the Super Fours of Asia Cup hockey tournament on Thursday, beating Indonesia 16-0. Now India will take on Japan tomorrow in its first match of the Super Fours. India had lost to Japan 2-5 in the pool game and would like to avenge the loss. In cricket, the second qualifier match of the Indian Premier League 2022 is being played at the Narendra Modi Stadium in Ahmedabad today. 2008 winners Rajasthan Royals are taking on Royal Challengers Bangalore, and the winner today will reach the finals of the tournament to challenge Gujarat Titans. Sri Lanka crushed Bangladesh by 10 wickets in the second test played at Mirpur to win the series 1-0 after the host team collapsed from 156 for 5 to 169 all out in their second innings. In tennis, 7th seed Andrei Rublev and fourth seed Stefanos Tsitsipas have entered the third round of the French Open tournament. In the second round, Rublev defeated Federico Del Bonis of Argentina 6-3, 3-6, 6-2, 6-3. Tsitsipas, on the other hand, had an even tougher battle against Czech qualifier Zdeněk Kola, winning in 4 sets 6-3, 7-6, 6-7, 7-6 to make it to the round 3. That's all we have in this bulletin. To keep yourself updated, stay tuned for more informative programs on Sansad TV. Till then, goodbye. Namaskar.